As the parliamentary year draws to a close, we're taking a look back at the EPP Group in action, reviewing a selection of its main activities, proposals and the regulations that were adopted right inside that very building. Join us in the European Parliament for a closer look. For a year, the EPP Group has been fighting to get the best out of the EU's €960 billion budget to ensure jobs and better economic growth for its citizens. Following extensive negotiations between the EU's institutions on the multi-annual financial framework for the period 2014 to 2020, a political deal was reached just before the June summit, establishing a real investment plan for Europe. €6 billion will be ploughed into combating youth unemployment, prioritising the resources on regions where more than 25% of young people are out of work.
We will speed up the Youth Employment Initiative and front-load the funds so that the initial €6 billion are invested in the following 2 years and not spread thinly over the full 7 years of the MFF period.
Throughout the negotiations, the leaders of the largest political groups steadfastly rejected the deal by the Council to do more with less money, and their firmness paid off.
Nous ne pouvions pas accepter d'entraîner.
We couldn't resign ourselves to a limited budget without finding a solution for optimizing our investments. We needed a more flexible budget, which allows every unspent euro to go to these areas where they are most needed.
Trouver une solution pour optimiser nos investissements. Il fallait un budget plus souple qui
Hence the flexibility to use unused margins. We could not settle for a 7-year austerity budget. Europe must be able to react quickly to the changes our continent faces. Therefore the revision clause, so that in 2016 the next Parliament's voice will be heard.
Aux changements auxquels notre continent est confronté. D'où la clause de révision pour qu'en 2016 le prochain Parlement ait voix au chapitre.
As a result of Parliament's insistence, funding for Horizon 2020, the EU's framework programme for research and innovation, Erasmus and COSME, the new programme for the competitiveness of enterprises and SMEs, will also be front-loaded. The European Central Bank and the EU's Investment Bank will pool together their loans up to €100 billion to create a liquid market for the small and medium-sized enterprises, which account for 85% of all new jobs that were created in the last 10 years. Employment policies, however, remain a national competence, and the EU institutions urged governments to take advantage of what's on offer and implement structural reforms in their countries as soon as possible. The EPP Group went on to lead the reform on the Common Agricultural Policy to make it more efficient and responsive to the current needs of the countryside and the citizens' expectations given these economic times of hardship. The new CAP reflects the EU's strong response to the ongoing challenges of food safety and climate change and plays a key part in promoting smart and sustainable growth and jobs in rural areas.
I think it's very important to point out that rural development policy is also growth policy. So we also want to motivate our farmers to create new ideas, how to make cooperatives, how to make direct farming or direct marketing more or less. So all in all we want to find a very good package to give them the framework to work through this.
Under the reforms, agricultural subsidies to big industrial farms will be reduced by 30%. Some of that money will be redistributed to smaller farms, particularly those that use eco-friendly methods.
European farmers, all 13.5 million of them, are up against 8 or 9 big distributors who establish the prices in the market. So where I consider and where the EPP considers that the Commission has not gone far enough is in giving farmers the power to organize themselves to sell their products together in order to stand up to these distributors, which are of course much bigger. And that requires a change to EU competition law.
The new policy, which you can see in full on our website, is due to come into effect in 2014, following formal adoption of the reforms later this year. Up until last year, it could have cost you tens of thousands of euros to patent a hot new idea. But after a 30-year deadlock, all that has changed, thanks to action here in the European Parliament. In a bid to speed up innovation in Europe, it approved unitary patent protection, making it easier and cheaper for firms to compete in Europe and beyond. A unified patent court was established, rules set on translating patents, and litigation costs cut from tens of thousands to just a few thousand euros. The EPP Group spokesperson on the issue, Raffaella Baldessera, said a common European patent will make the EU a more attractive place to create and innovate.
Naturally, we inserted an amendment that allows, within this regulation, reimbursement of translation costs for small and medium-sized enterprises, for research centers, for universities, to favor circulation. With this reform, we can imagine that we can stimulate and develop this system so that our continent is always as competitive as possible.
EPP Group members have been pushing to complete a fragmented single digital market and use it as a tool to boost economic recovery. The Commission has since estimated that by doing so, the online single market could bring in 110 billion euros every year. Spanish MEP Pablo Arias authored a report which focused on helping small and medium-sized enterprises in particular by simplifying the rules to break down the national barriers to growth.
SMEs are being held back by market fragmentation. To give you an idea, an SME has to have 27 different websites to sell their products in the 27 member states of the European Union, and all this in a so-called internal market. It is important that they do not feel scared about using the internet, and my report is very clear about that. I want to help make our SMEs able to compete on equal terms with the big companies selling their products all over Europe on the web.
The resolution adopted by Parliament will develop a real pan-European e-commerce in VAT, postal services and intellectual property rights.
If you're planning on travelling anywhere this summer, fear not. You can now expect fairer treatment if your coach, train or flight is delayed or cancelled, or if your luggage is lost or stolen, thanks to new measures to strengthen your passenger rights, as the EPP Group coordinator for the new legislation, Mathieu Grosch, explains.
I think it is a good moment now to change some basic aspects. For instance, what is an extraordinary event? Is a strike one? Yes. Now the Commission is clear, strike is one. A technical problem on the airplane, for instance, is not an extraordinary event. So there you, for the second one, you will have a compensation, for the first one not. This is, let's say, one of these aspects of clarification.
From now on, airlines are obliged to give its customers clear information on what's happening within half an hour. You have the right to renounce your travel when your trip is disrupted, and any delay over 5 hours entitles you to be reimbursed or rerouted, because after all, the main objective is to guarantee that passengers arrive at their destination as quickly as possible. The measures also include stricter sanctioning for air carriers that do not comply and clearer complaint handling procedures. Mathieu Grosch wants to continue work on this to make it even more beneficial to fly European.
Normally now we want to have, let's say, a regulatory body in every country, but already in the airport himself, the passenger can go and let's say, claim his rights, which is not possible in every airport for the moment.
And the year finished on a high, with Croatia becoming the EU's 28th member state on the 1st of July.
And the 28th member state has accomplished a lot, becoming a fully fledged member of the biggest club of democracies just 18 years after the devastating Yugoslavian war. As it looks ahead to a successful EU membership, it may inspire the hopes of other Western Balkan countries waiting to join this monumental union, which today represents the concerns and aspirations of 500 million people.
So how would you sum up the end of this parliamentary year? For me, it's certainly been one of courage, dedication and achievements, but there is still a long path ahead to really get Europe out of this global recession. And the EPP Group will continue to attack it with integrity and conviction to ensure more Europe, better growth and more jobs for its citizens. Thank you for watching throughout the year, and join us again in September for more EPP TV news. Enjoy the summer and hopefully this weather.